Good morning, viewer. Here's the breaking news from Ivasi. Delivered on the eve of his 100th day in office, the Democrat pitched some 4 trillion in spending, the largest overhaul of US benefits since the 1960s, analysts say. He called it a once in a generation investment in America itself, but the plan faced a battle in Congress before they can become law. There has been widespread opposition to the proposals from the Republican Party, which is unlikely to back tax increases and more government spending. And while there is a slim Democratic majority in both houses, there has been division among the party over how far to go with the plans. In a historic moment, US Vice President Kamala Harris, the first woman to hold that office, and House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi both sat behind Mr. Biden during Wednesday night's address. It was the first time two women appeared behind the president during a speech to Congress. After addressing Ms. Harris in his opening remarks as a Madam Vice President, Mr. Biden added, "No president has ever said those words from this podium, and it is about time." The 78 years old president biodiversity solid approval ratings presented the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan. The White House said the proposals would be funded by tax raises on corporations and the wealthiest Americans. It is time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% to pay their fair share, Mr. Biden said at an event that was cut back due to the pandemic. He described the American Jobs Plan as a blue-collar blueprint to build America that would boost investment in public transport, high-speed broadband, and road and bridges. He added that the plan would be guided by the fight against climate change. When I think climate change, I think jobs. He said, there is no reason why American workers cannot lead the world in the production of electric vehicles and batteries. He said, the 1.8 trillion American Families Plan meanwhile would focus on children and seek to provide. The proposals followed the so-called American Rescue Plan, a 1.9 trillion coronavirus stimulus package that included direct checks to most Americans, which Mr. Biden signed into law last month. On Wednesday, he framed this latest proposal in the context of foreign policy and said the US was in a competition with China and other countries to win the 21st century. He also called for politicians from both parties to back his plans and said he was willing to work with both sides. Joe Biden's speech to Congress started as a victory lap and ended with a warning. He began by touting what was, when by all accounts, a very successful rollout of vaccination in the US, paving the way for a return to some semblance of normalcy in the months ahead. He boasted of hundreds of thousands of new jobs created in his first 100 days and a growing economy. He touted recently first funding that will help cut child poverty in the US in half. That was all a setup, however, for the president's speech for more spending and more action from Congress. He proposed a $1 trillion package of universal pre-kindergarten, 2 years of pre-college education, family leave and childcare funding. He called for legislation on gun control, immigration, criminal justice reform, and voting rights. He concluded, however, by turning to the 6th January attack on the US Capitol and the threat posed to democracy by the world's autocratic nations. He assured the nation that the US will prevail. His ending, however, seemed designed to create a sense of urgency, one that perhaps he can harness to achieve the ambitious agenda he set out on Wednesday night. Republican National Committee RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel said Mr. Biden's first 100 days in office were an unqualified failure, accusing him and his party of hyper partnership. In his inaugural address, Biden called for unity. That was a lie, and our nation is worse off and more divided thanks to Joe Biden, her statement read. The top Republican in the House, Kevin McCarthy, was more concise. The whole thing could have just been an email, he wrote on Twitter. Senator Tim Scott, a possible contender for the White House in 2024 and the only black Republican senator, followed Mr. Biden's speech with the traditional rebuttal from the opposition party. He said the proposal would lower wages of the average American worker and dismiss them as a liberal with list of big government worst. Mr. Scott then discussed racism in America, accusing Democrats of wanting the issue more than they want the solution. America is not a racist country. It is a backwards to fight discrimination with different types of discrimination, and it's wrong to try to use our painful past to dishonesty shut down debates in the present, he said. Beyond the effort, Project TV USA.